My name is Mohammad Shaheen. I'm the head of product strategy at Elisa Polystar. I hope everybody's energy is still as high as yesterday and today's morning. I promise to keep this as simple and as less painful as possible. After seeing Mr. Vinod's presentation today about Kubeflow, I feel like I'm coming underdressed. I needed to put more stuff in here. But we're going to talk about turning complexity into opportunity with AI, but we are going to look at it from a vendor perspective. So I'm working in a product management, 22 years in the industry, half of these on the operator side, and the other half building the applications that I used to work with myself. So I'm looking at the problems from two sides, from a vendor perspective and from the operator perspective. And AI is coming here to change everything. And I cannot be excited more about AI in telecom or the first GPRS call like 20 years ago. That was exciting too. So a bit of information about the company, Elisa Polystar. It's a Swedish-Finnish company, headquarters in Stockholm. We've been in the business for 20 years building service assurance, customer experience management products. We have customers around the world in many places, many areas. We have over 10 offices, and we are a bunch of enthusiastic engineers when it comes to protocols and signal analysis, probing and protocol deep dive type of problematics that happens in all of the networks, and then we need to fix them by building the software that helps you fix those. And when it comes to AI, I mean, this is not something that started just yesterday or a couple of years ago. If you remember when Microsoft invested in OpenAI, that was in 2019. And at that time, OpenAI was still like an open source type of research company. Then 3 years later, ChatGPT 3, I guess, or 2.5 came into the existence, and the whole thing blows up. And the avalanche of change has started. And when we looked at, okay, now we have to embrace this technology, embrace this revolution, and what kind of use cases that we have seen our customers asking us to help them build using this new technology, using AI and machine learning. And this is not an exhaustive list, but I would say this is like 80% of what we see right now in the market. First and foremost, network optimization and predictive maintenance, popular request by all the operators around the world. Everything about anomaly detection, capacity forecasting, operational excellence, operational efficiency. All of these kind of use cases are underneath this type of category. And definitely machine learning and AI can help in that. But let's face it, I mean, when I look at problems like, hey, can we predict the next problem when it's going to happen? I mean, I have this alarm that's been repeating for like 2 months. Can I predict when it's going to happen next? Well, that's common sense. That's probably it's going to happen if it's been repeating for the last 2 months. But the thing is that you need to trust the process. If you build a process that basically looks at thousands of alarms, looks at patterns, repetitions, analyzes multiple data sources at the same time, then the prediction will make much more sense. But then we're kind of like trying to build also this crystal ball that will predict the future and when the problems are going to happen. And problems will happen, or they might not happen. There is an accuracy issue here. And then you can think about it like this. We are in an industry, or the AI and machine learning specific projects, according to McKinsey, 80% of those projects actually fail in productization phase. So you might start a nice POC or an experiment or something that will make you excited about the new technology. But then once you start to feel or they face the reality of putting this into scale and production, then problem starts to happen. So operational excellence and network optimizations, there's a lot of use cases there that you need to experiment with before taking into scale, especially with the huge amount of data that we have to deal with inside an operator environment. Second is automated service, customer service and chatbots, very popular. Probably we have seen this being talked about today and yesterday many times. I think this is one of the most straightforward, let's say like this, straightforward use cases where AI can help, especially with the advancements that's happening in natural language processing, real-time translation, these kind of things. It makes sense to handle a lot of the first-line calls through an AI agent, especially if the questions or the inquiries of the customers being or asking customer care to do them is basic stuff like I need to know my quota, or I need to know how to subscribe to this service. So a chatbot can save a lot of money in those types of problems. Fraud detection and security, this is something that will heavily rely on how much data you can access or we can access as a vendor, because when we are trying to detect a fraud in application pattern usage from user plane access or something like this, or a DDoS attack or a sync attack, we need to have access to a lot of data that might be labeled as sensitive because it's your data, it's my data. So there is a use case in this domain, but it is kind of like tied with how much data you can access and how much you can analyze out of that data to be able to do real-time fraud detection and security warnings. But it's being done, and I think part of the regulations allows us to use this data for that kind of purpose, especially for the security-related use cases. Last but not least, proactive customer experience management. Top 2 use cases that we see, NPS prediction, churn prediction, which I both hate because it's very subjective sometimes. So you can actually do some kind of churn prediction or NPS prediction, but I usually ask my customers, like, how much of your tickets that you get into your CRM system are related to real network problems and how much are related to billing issues or an angry customer from, not a good call with a customer agent or somebody that is complaining that he didn't get his package or something like that. And to my surprise, the percentage of the problems that are related to network only, pure network problems, are very low. But when we access the data from the network to be able to detect NPS and churn, the data that we can have access to right now is network data. Once you start to add more information about billing, customer interactions, touch points information, then the data might start to make sense, and then your prediction levels are going to get higher and better. So these are like the summary of categories of use cases that we see in the market right now, but let's take it to the next step, which is some of the best practices that we personally in the company use when we are trying to build a new product and we're trying to make the percentage of success of that product high. And for Gen AI or machine learning products, I don't think I can even call them a product. I would call them a project because it's an ongoing relationship. And I don't think it's just install and forget type of products anymore. You need to continue to have the relationship with the operator to improve, upgrade, add features, and mitigate problems. And what I was really happy about in the last 2 days is the amount of recognition, how much important is the data in this whole journey. Because like a year ago, when you look at what happened in MWC, for example, or DTW, everybody was talking about AI and machine learning and being the first to implement them. But nobody talked about the data or the data readiness. But now, after like maybe 1 year or 2 years from the hype starts, everybody's going back and say, hey, maybe I'm not ready because of the data is not ready. So what we are trying to look at here is, or what we're trying to do is to change the mentality of the operator in how they see their data. I mean, we used to have data, or we still have data in silos. I mean, we have them, we love them, we hate them, they exist anyway, right? And it's fascinating to see the journey of data transformation that happened in the operators, moving from the old days of just relational databases to big data. Remember big data like 6 years ago or 7 years ago? It was hyped. Where is big data now? Now we're moving into data lakes, iceberg architecture, data oceans, whatever. It's just storage, right? But I mean, not trivializing it, but just quoting one quote from a gentleman called Andrea Karpathy. He was the head of AI in Tesla, and he was one of the founders on OpenAI. He said, to start your AI project, the first thing that you need to do is to be one with your data, which sounds like a Star Wars quote here, but It is real. Like, you need to really know your data. You really need to understand where to find information in your data and able to start that project of churn or MPS. You need to make sense of your data. You need to have a clean data, organized data, labeled data. And the process that we basically tell our customers to start with is to build this SME transformation process. What does SME transformation process means? It's basically a subject matter expert transformation process. You know what else is siloed? It's your SMEs. You might find them in different teams, different departments, but remember this guy that you used to call when you had a VoLTE problem or a roaming problem or something in your user plane or something is not working in your HSS. This subject matter expert should be the driver of your data strategy, how to categorize, build the data catalogs that will be used for the future AI training models. So this transformation is for doing reasoning, prioritization, building golden data sets, building golden questions for AI chatbots, and then you transform everything into a data catalog. So it's not even a data silo or a database or a data lake. It's a catalog. So if I need to start a project that will improve my customer care, solving first-line network problems, what data do I need? If the answer to that question is in less than a minute, then you're ready to go. If the answer is, well, we don't know exactly where to start. I mean, we have a bunch of data here and a bunch of data there, and we need to put them together somehow, and this is a lot of work to do. One example of how this is important is that we were doing some project with a customer, and I asked the question, how do you store your cell information? They store it in a certain way with a certain name. That's on the RAN side. But then if you go to the core side, they store the same cells with a completely different naming convention. So it was actually impossible just to start the project because each cell in the network has two names, one given by the RAN team and one given by the core team. Simple, very simple, but it completely stopped the project from the beginning because they had to start another project to do unification of naming. So very small stuff related to the data, but it will make a lot of impact on your progress in any AI and machine learning project. So building actionable insights, catalogs, it's going to improve, of course, your operational efficiency when it comes to MLOps and AIOps. And this also includes data monetization. So anything from market research information, customer feedback, location-based advertising is a really good source for customer care and customer experience management. I mean, if that's not if it doesn't contain any privacy breach or anything, but it is used in some areas of the world. Consumer behavior analytics, we also found this to be a very good, important source for also customer experience management, like how the customer behaves in one area in the world is completely different from another area, which will influence also projects like churn prediction and MPS prediction and stuff like this. But then next is for you to move from a reactive to a proactive agent ops driven assurance. And maybe this is a new term here, agent ops. What is agent ops? It's a bunch of tools, and these tools that I have here in the middle, they're not exhaustive also. I mean, you might have other stuff that you need to put in there, but these are the ones that we think is a good start. So building a Copilot functionality, I mean, we have seen a lot of examples today and yesterday about Copilot, where it can be used, how it can be used, how it can be efficient. But remember, we're building on this data catalog layer that I just talked about. Second thing is something that I'm surprised that it was not mentioned that much, but it's really important, which is RAG-based LLM, Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's basically the architecture that will allow you to ground truth the LLM answers to your own data, to your own private data, which requires that you have a knowledge-based management system. What is a knowledge-based management system? It's basically you collecting all of the information that you have accumulated over the years, which are stored in PDFs, documents, PowerPoints, reports, databases, CRM systems that is filled with data, but it's your data, it's not somebody else's data, and use this to augment answers from LLM chatbots. It's the faster and easier way to build chatbots, but it's not the most, I would say, the most quick ones, because it requires a lot of trials and errors and optimizations on the prompt level. But at least it's much cheaper than building on fine-tuning your own LLM models, which requires GPUs. I mean, this might require a little bit of a GPU, but not like fine-tuning models. Agentic orchestration, it will come. It's inevitable that at some point of time, you will have all of these agents and AI ops applications and stuff like this that will require some kind of orchestration and observability layer, because now you have built another layer of tools that require monitoring and performance optimization and token optimization and LLM calls optimization. And guess what? Cost optimization, if you are using OpenAI APIs or Anthropic or publicly available APIs. That's why, of course, a lot of the operators are also building their own LLM models in-house so that they try to cut the cost of using a public API. Then at the end of the day, you have those agent exposure layer, which is the different kinds of agents that you can spin off based on this data that you have and this framework of agent ops that you have. And you have to think about this SME agent as your freshly new hired engineer that just maybe came out of college. Usually what happens, you give him a bunch of trainings, you give him documentation, you put him to shadow some expert that you have in the team, right? It's exactly like this. Agents, AI agents, needs to be trained, needs to be told what to do, needs to be tweaked based on some expert's knowledge. So building an agent, it's basically like training a new employee. And you have to invest in that. And you have to put some resources, human resources. And that's when, when you think about, hey, AI is going to replace, or AI is going to take over some jobs and people are going to lose their jobs. But hey, there are other sets of jobs that are now emerging from this whole ecosystem, like prompt engineers. Subject matter experts have been now widely requested, even by companies like OpenAI and Microsoft. They want to, Google, they want to hire subject matter experts in certain domains so that they can train their own LLMs to be, knowledgeable about those specific domains. So I think this is also a goldmine from an operator perspective, because they own very expensive subject matter experts, and they are not a lot, and they're very hard to replace. So at least you should use them to build those first-line agents that will act and maybe replace some of the first-line engineers that you have in the network. Last thing is AI as a strategic imperative. I mean, definitely operators that will embrace AI today, they will define the competitive scene in the future. And I don't think any operator out there is not doing something in AI. But then there's a lot of concepts that are going to change. Like, for example, revenue is going to become revenue innovation. Like, to create a new revenue stream is going to come an innovation by itself, because it requires a lot of research and understanding of the technology and able to build a new business model that will create a revenue. To give you an example, there is now a discussion about building a unified MCP app store. What is this? It's basically you as an operator offering MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, to users or to enterprises to access your own applications that you host in your operators. So it's like, I want to connect to a service that is given by the operator. I am building an LLM agent. I will rent one of the MCPs or buy one of the MCPs that are provided by the operator for that specific service. One more thing that will change is, I think we heard about that, is slicing for training, or basically the operators giving a slice of their 5G network to train LLM models for organizations, researchers, for even companies, basically renting the network, renting the processing power to organizations and getting money out of that. So that's a new revenue stream. Last but not least, there will be a lot of strategic partnership, a lot of alliances, a lot of products that are shared or co-developed between vendors and operators. We will see this coming in the near future. And I think it's going to be exciting. So with that, thank you very much. And I hope that you enjoyed this slide.